We live.
On X, I see us, so I'm ready.
Awesome.
Welcome, everybody. On X, I see
Welcome.
us, so I'm ready. All right, welcome back to the Mr. and Mrs. Wrestling Podcast, the show where the takes are hot, the banter's even hotter, and tonight there's absolutely no time to waste.
Grab your coffee because AEW Dynamite is off the air. We're live to break down everything that happened in the aftermath of AEW Redemption from the legendary wrestling city of Montreal, Quebec, Canada.
Did Redemption deliver on the hype? Who walked out with momentum? Which rivalries just got a whole lot more personal? And maybe most importantly, what kind of curveballs did AEW throw at us on Dynamite that nobody saw coming?
No rehearsed talking points, just waiting until tomorrow. Just instant reactions, bold opinions, and a little friendly debate, and all the moments that'll have the wrestling world refreshing social media before the show's even over.
So, whether you're joining us from your couch, your commute, or you're just catching your breath after Dynamite like the rest of us, settle in because we're heading right into AEW.
This is the Mr. and Mrs. Wrestling Podcast Live, and it starts right now. Awesome. Shout out to our son Rocco, who's watching us right now. I told him we'd give him a little shout out on the pod. So, hey, baby, we love you.
I think they're both awake and watching.
Oh, awesome. All right, we are going to, shout out to Charlotte too. We don't want her to feel left out. Shout out to our little lady Charlotte there. Okay, we are going to go ahead and start off by talking about AEW Redemption. Is that right, babe?
Yeah, it was, a very talked about pay per view, first July pay per view, first pay per view from Montreal, and a lot of things went down.
Yeah. So it started off with an AEW International title number one contendership six-way ladder match. So Mike Bailey defeats El Clone and Jack Perry and Commander Nick Wayne and the Beast Mortos. This match went for 20 minutes and 2 seconds. This is a big win for Mike Bailey, don't you think, babe?
Yeah, hometown guy. Perfect way to start the show. The crowd was hot for Bailey. I thought this match was awesome. Nick Wayne really stood out. I thought at times, like, how funny would it be if, like, the Beast Mortos unexpectedly won? Like, that would
Yeah.
be so offbeat and random, but it would make the match, like, spectacular. But I'm really happy that Mike Bailey gets this opportunity. He's going to cash it in at Arena Mexico, where he's going to fight the Proto Star, Kyle Fletcher, who we'll talk about in a little bit here. But this was awesome. Uh, a fantastic ladder match. Crowd super hot. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, definitely a great match to start the show and get everybody hyped. I like that they built in the entrances were kind of part of the pre-show, and it definitely lured us into the main show, and I like that it kind of kicked off the main show. Then we had a tag team match. The Young Bucks pick up the win against the Death Riders, so John Moxley and Will Ospreay. This match went for 19 minutes and 36 seconds. This was a great match. How'd you feel about it, babe? Were you shocked that the Young Bucks won, or did you kind of expect that?
Yeah, kind of expected it. Uh, it was a 50-50 type deal. There was a moment early in the match where Nick Jackson collided heads, and not sure if that was part of the story, but he looked out of it. It was a nice story throughout the match. Didn't know if he could do it. Matt took on a lot of the action, but you still saw Nick do his normal, you know, Nick being Nick. And I know I talk about it at nauseum, but one day, hopefully, we get that Nick Jackson solo run, even if it's in something like the Continental. It would be fun. But Moxley and Osprey were fun together, and certainly you saw the cracks in the foundation really forming there, and Osprey not really being totally on board with Moxley's way of doing it.
Yeah.
But it
So
was a it
typically,
was a it was a good match.
Matt Jackson is kind of like the guy that's usually like operating kind of injured, right? Like that's kind of the storyline. Doesn't he take the majority of the bumps? Isn't he, kind of putting on the show of being injured? It's kind of not Nick's thing usually.
Yeah, normally, Matt's always selling the back, and he's had a bad back from years of wrestling, and this was a little bit different, and it was, just the Young Bucks doing a different kind of match, something fun. For a while there, I thought, they were going to use this as a way for the Young Bucks to lose, you know, because what everybody's waiting for is that, that New Day match. That's what everybody wants. That's going to be the big moneymaker at some point, because you have to expect that's the direction it's eventually going to go, because the opportunity's there, and Osprey's coming up on his big moment, so you want to keep him strong. So I mean, you just have a clash here, and it made for good storytelling.
Yeah. Then we had an AEW International title match. So we had your guy Kyle Fletcher picking up the win against Bandito. This match went for 26 minutes and 14 seconds. It felt like an epic match. It was so long. It was good. I thought it was a great match, but it felt like it was too long to me. I know Kyle Fletcher is like one of your favorites right now. Did you feel the same way, or was every moment kind of action packed and keeping you focused on it?
I could have watched this for 46 minutes. You know,
Not
they
me.
wrestled again to, they didn't wrestle each other, but they were in a six-man tonight, and it was just a continuation. I could watch these two wrestle all the time. I love Kyle Fletcher. I mean, I'll say it again. I think Kyle Fletcher is a carbon copy of 1994 Shawn Michaels right now.
Yeah.
He came off of, the tag team, Aussie Open Rockers. He went
Yep.
solo, completely switched up his look. He's got the flashy pink gear. He's got the glasses. Shawn Michaels coming out in the chaps. He's got the weird glasses, the long blonde mullet. Picks up a manager, Don Callis, Sherry Martel. Picks up secondary title, Intercontinental, TNT. The parallels are there. The in-ring work
Yeah.
is so similar. The looks. I think he's awesome. He's definitely my favorite wrestler, in wrestling today. And Bandito, he just puts on classics. He has
Yeah.
great matches all the time. You've seen him with Takeshita, Kyle Fletcher, Moxley. Anytime he's out there. I mean, we saw it, live. Bandito versus Swerve. That was awesome. This was my match of the night. The thuds that you heard during this match, whether it was, the moves on the apron, the brain busters, the
Yeah.
dives, these guys really went at it. You could tell their bodies took a toll during this match, and Bandito's no worse off, coming off a loss like that, because this was awesome. I'd imagine Dave Meltzer's going to give it 5 stars too.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Evan, thanks for joining us tonight. Yeah, I think Bandito has just been having banger after banger match. Like the match he had with Mox not that long ago was incredible. This match was so good. I think that he consistently, performs, match after match. And I mean, I think he's going places. I think he's going to have a world title someday. I think he's so talented. And it was all 26 of that match. 26 minutes was great. So
Yeah, and Bandito's still the Ring of Honor World Champion. So we got Death Before Dishonor coming up later this month. It'll be interesting to see who he goes against, because he's held that title for a while. So you know,
yeah,
certainly it makes sense having him as like the mainstay of the brand. He can go everywhere. He's always in Mexico. You know, AEW all the time. His tag team with Brody King is, top tier right now. So, this was an awesome match. If you're going to go out of your way and just watch one match, this was my one match of the night, and I thought it was awesome.
so is it one of your matches, like your top matches for the card, or
Oh,
are we gonna get to that?
Yeah, I mean it's my top match of the card for sure. This was the best match of the weekend. I don't know if it was. I'd have to go back and like examine it if it was Kyle Fletcher's best match. Because he's had some bangers this year. But it's certainly in the conversation
Yeah,
because he's awesome every time he's out there. It's good.
yeah, I agree. Then we had a double chain tag team match. The Dogs defeat the Bang Bang Gang. This time it was Jay White and Juice Robinson. This match went for 17 minutes and 35 seconds. Now, when it says double chain, what does that mean?
So each combatant was chained. So Connors to Robinson, Finley to White. So each person was chained to one another. So there was no
Oh, I didn't
escaping.
even notice that. How did I
It,
miss that?
I don't know. This was this is what we would call the bathroom break match. This match did not deliver. This was more like a collision or a dynamite match, and it was just clunky.
Yeah, I
You
didn't.
know,
I can't believe I didn't notice. Maybe it was my bathroom break during that match.
yeah, I mean, this is the one match I felt like really didn't need to be on the card, and it's unfortunate because the last few times you've said that on an AEW show, it's always involved the dogs, and I don't know if it's just you know pairings or just wasn't working that night or what, but it hasn't been coming through for me with the dogs. David Finley's a solid hand, but this was the concern, and this is why WWE wanted to send him to NXT. I don't
Yeah,
know if you know he's that top level guy. I mean, he's a good secondary guy, but we'll see. And Jay White's just coming back from 15 months off. Juice has been off and on injured, but they were falling all over each other. It wasn't smooth, and it was my least favorite match of the card for sure.
yeah, I agree. Then we had another great match, the AEW TBS title match. Maya World picks up a huge win against Hikaru Shida. This match went for 16 minutes and 37 seconds. What a win for Maya World. She's just been on an upward trajectory. Um, I'm really happy for her. I think, she definitely deserves this and she's been working hard. But overall, how did you feel about this match?
I mean, story wise, great story, awesome for Maya World. In ring wise, let a lot to be desired here,
Hmm.
and I don't think it was anywhere near as good as the Mercedes match.
Yeah,
Uh, it didn't hit home like that, and it's unfortunate. It's a huge moment for her. Still picked up the win, but I feel like if she like tonight, she had a way better match than what we saw, and we'll talk about that later. But you know, Sheeta has been, you know, she had that one really good match with Statlander where they had that
hmm,
street fight, and that was awesome. But beyond that, I've been a little let down with the return of Sheeta.
yeah,
Maya, it's a great story. She had one of the most horrible things. She lost her brother, and her rise in AEW. 6 months ago, she was just a fill-in. You know, two girls didn't want to do business. Hyan and Maya World stepped up, did a squash match, and kept coming back. And now look, Maya World's the TBS champ. She's gonna get an opportunity, and she's got you know, there's a lot of competition and there's a lot of good matches. So she's gonna have to really swim and be ready to go.
yeah. I think she'll do a good job. I think she definitely has the drive, and I mean, at least I hope she does a good job. We can
Yeah,
only time will tell.
yeah, and she's untested, so that's the other thing. She's never been, the top star of any company, even booked in this high of a position before. And
Yeah,
on national television, she's really going to have to come through. And, tonight was a good step forward, so we'll see what happens in the future. But, you know, the possibilities are endless, and it'll be interesting to see how long this reign is and,
yeah,
how she develops.
Then we had the AEW World Tag Team title match. Cage and Cope pick up the win against the Death Riders, so Claudio Castagnoli and Pac. This match went for 18 minutes and 36 seconds. I don't think I saw much of this match either. I don't know what I was
Yeah,
doing, but
it, it felt like the first 10 minutes was just all Christian because they attacked Copeland and Cage, before the bell and focused
yeah,
on Copeland, and he was out for a while. And it was pretty funny because Christian, went for the tag, nobody was there, and he just hulked up on his own and without getting the hot tag and just fought back. And it really won the crowd over and, turned the tide in the match. I'm a big fan of Claudio and Pac as a team. I've really enjoyed Pac in the Death Riders, and he really brings a certain attitude to the group. And Claudio, he fits in on any card in any type of match. I, some of my favorite memories are Claudio as a tag team wrestler. I was fortunate enough
yeah.
to see one of his last Ring of Honor matches at Center Stage when it was Claudio and Chris Hero. So,
That's awesome. I don't know if I've seen him live. Have I seen him live? Like at an
probably.
NXT show? Didn't
No,
he have a match with?
we saw him and Sheamus together, the bar.
Oh, duh. I loved him in the bar. That was the stupidest gimmick ever. I just loved the entrance, but I
They
mean, I've
made
always
the
loved Claudio.
Yeah, they made it work. It was good, and you could see that again. He would fit in nicely with the Death Riders, you know, a nice veteran presence. He wouldn't have to work all the time. A lot of six-man tags to keep him fresh, and it would be fun,
Yeah.
And we got Cage and
He could
Cope.
be like the muscle. He doesn't even have to talk?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's a decent talker, so he could hold his own. But it would be fun just to see him. A lot of these guys, it's just fun to think about what they could be without the chains, without anybody
Yeah.
telling them what to do.
Yeah. I mean, it would be fun to see how they recreate themselves. Still no Motor City Machine Guns. Maybe we're wrong about that one.
No, I think they're coming at some point. Tonight would have made a lot of sense that they're from Detroit, but also it's what everybody expects. So there's a couple
Yeah.
different ways to look at it. So you know anything could happen, but we're getting Cage and Cope versus the Young Bucks. So that'll be awesome for All In, first time ever, and you know, two of the best tag teams ever. If
Yeah.
it's going to be just a regular tag match, it seems. So that'll be fun, and certainly the Young Bucks are going to go all out. We know that.
Yeah, definitely. Then we had a no holds barred match. Chris Jericho picks up the win against Tommaso Ciampa in 21 minutes and 52 seconds. I mean, I don't know what was I doing on Sunday. I
I mean,
watched.
I don't know how you missed this one.
I mean, this
Not
was the match I was most excited about.
the fact that Jericho used a power drill on Tommaso Ciampa.
Oh, I did not miss that. I did see that.
Yeah, yeah. This match was, this was no holds barred. Jericho came out as the Painmaker and really, really did it. And Ciampa, did what Ciampa does and had an awesome match. He was bleeding all over the place, and we had thumbtacks, we had baseball bats, we had chairs, blood everywhere. We had the green mist from Jericho,
Yep,
and
I
of
saw that.
and of course they finished it off with a power drill. They had teased it, that they were going to use it, but Jericho actually used it. What I didn't like is no follow up to that. We have no idea, is Tommaso Ciampa like somewhere in Montreal with a hole in his head? Is he okay? Is he alive?
I'm
What's
sure
what's
he
going?
is.
Where's the update? If he comes back with nothing is just normal, it's a missed opportunity. I mean, how many times I don't recall there ever being a power drill used in a pro wrestling match.
Yeah, I think that's crazy. I did see some of that match. It was a good match.
Yeah, it was fun, and it's something different. This is what can happen if you're someone coming from WWE. If you really want to work and you really want to put on good matches, here's your opportunity. And Ciampa's having great match after great match. Doesn't matter the opponent. Who cares if he lost? I mean, certainly you care, but you know, he's still getting booked. He's still having great matches. He's still getting opportunities. His first match, he won the TNT title. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Then we had the AEW national title match. Andrade El Idolo picks up the win against Mark Davis. This match went for 16 minutes and 13 seconds. It's a title change, very exciting for Andrade. How did you feel about this match?
how Andrade. I love it. I thought this was awesome. I expected Andrade to win this. If you listen to our preview show, we talked about it.
Yeah,
He's perfect for this title. Going all over the Indies, being that big draw. He's huge in Mexico. He's a favorite in Japan, and Indies, have booked him. He's been at GCW, House of Glory. So, this
yeah,
is awesome. Mark Davis, he's been a fun champion. He's really reinvented himself and, gone from being the Marty Jannetty of the tag team to, really holding his own and producing good matches. And, him and Don Callis, it's been fun. I really enjoy his new tag team with Doyle, Davis and Doyle. Sounds like a law firm, but, it's awesome. And Andrade looks great. He's having a great 2026, and this caps it off for him. He's the national champion, and I love how he has the Dynamite Diamond ring. He claims that he stole it from, MJF. So what's gonna happen there?
yeah, definitely. I can't wait to see what happens with that. I mean, I'm assuming we're not going to see MJF until Wembley, right?
Maybe it depends on his knee. That's something you're gonna have to monitor. How bad is that knee injury? I'd imagine Tony wants him for All In, and certainly he's always a draw. But is he going to be ready? Is he going to be healthy? That's
Yeah,
the thing to consider.
yeah, true. Then we had the AEW Women's World Title match. Willow Nightingale picks up the win against Tekla. This match was 15 minutes and 58 seconds. What an exciting match. Willow Nightingale is officially the first AEW Women's Grand Slam champion. So that's huge for her. Sad to see Tekla's reign come to an end because I love her, but I'm very happy for Willow Nightingale. I think that this was fantastic, and what a great honor it is that she gets to be the first Grand Slam champ for the women.
Yeah, this was an awesome match, and you know, I've loved Tekla all year. She's, as I've stated here, I really think she's been the women's wrestler of the year in 2026 so far.
Yeah,
It'll be interesting to see where she goes from here, but I've loved her run. She's brought, real entertainment to the women's division in AEW, especially with Tony Storm being out.
yeah,
So it was a lot of fun. And, Willow's Willow. She's the
yeah,
ultimate baby face. She's AEW's version of Bailey. This generation's Ricky Steamboat. And it's awesome. And, first Grand Slam champion in AEW. That was awesome. And this was a really good match. And Willow and Mercedes at All In. That's another solid match. A long-standing feud that's gone from New Japan to AEW. So it'll be fun.
yeah. I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about it a little bit later, but I mean, they were booing Mercedes Monday out of the house tonight. They were like, shut the fuck up. Like, they did not want to hear from her tonight. Like, everybody's all in you know, on Willow right now, which is
Yeah,
exciting.
absolutely.
Then we had the AEW World Title match. Kenny Omega picks up the win against Kevin Knight. This match was just 2 minutes shy of the Bandito match. Kevin Knight had a good showing. His gear looked great. It was a good match, right, babe?
Yeah, I enjoyed this match and I didn't love it. I think Kenny Omega's the best. I love what Kevin Knight did. His selling was on point. He looked like each move absolutely hurt him. And it just, to me, wasn't the best Kenny Omega. And that doesn't mean this was a bad match. It just means it was a good match. It wasn't
Yeah,
outstanding, but it was good. And I think that's what a lot of people were not happy with. They expected greatness. They expected, the best match ever, the best card ever. And you didn't get that, but you got a really good show. Was it their best
yeah,
show of the year? No. It wasn't. It was probably their worst show of the year, which is saying a lot for how awesome their year has been in 2026. But Kevin Knight took a pounding in this match. You know,
yeah.
he was taking V triggers like no other. And Omega looks to be in top form. The best Omega since probably New Japan.
Yeah, yeah, he looks just as good as he did when he was in New Japan. You know, he's in phenomenal shape. I mean, is this going to be his final run? We don't
I
even
hope
know.
I hope not. I mean, he's been awesome.
I mean, if
And
he's feeling good and he's moving good, like, why would you have this be the final run? Like, do
yeah,
something epic. Go out Cena style.
yeah, I mean, he doesn't have to, wrestle every single month. He doesn't have to wrestle uh 10 times every month. He
Right.
can just wrestle, a few times here and there. Cutting promos and showing up. That's all he needs to do. And he
Yeah.
can still have these 25-minute epic matches and still have really good matches. I mean,
Yeah.
even though this wasn't the best match and it wasn't my favorite Kenny Omega match, I mean, it was certainly better than anything that was on Saturday night's main event. I can tell you that.
Oh my God, 100%. I mean, he could be on that Roman Reigns schedule or that Brock Lesnar
Yeah,
schedule whenever he needs
yeah,
a millie here and there.
absolutely. And, certainly, you know, Tony will have him around. He's awesome. And, I've been a huge Kenny Omega fan, for a long time. And, you know, as much as it's going to be Osprey's moment at All In, part of me just wants Kenny Omega to be champion forever because, man, I love, you know, bad guy Kenny Omega, heel champion, maybe one more run, him and Don Callis back together. It would bring
Yeah.
joy to my heart.
It would bring joy to mine too. I'll take Kenny Omega any way we can get him. I do love him. He's one of my top favorite wrestlers of all time.
Yeah, it was a solid pay-per-view. Go check it out. If you enjoy wrestling, you'll enjoy the card. And if you're enjoying this live stream, make sure you subscribe and follow us. Where can they follow us, Mayor?
They can follow us at YouTube at Mr. and Mrs. WrestlePod. It's going to be the same thing on Facebook and Instagram. If you do X, you can follow it at Eminem WrestleP, I think is the handle there. You don't want to miss out. We do have a lot of great stuff. We do the weekly review, and we have our Summer Indie Spotlight going on right now. Shout out to D Savage. He's going to be our Friday interview. So definitely check us out Friday, YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, or anywhere you get your podcasts.
Yeah, we got a
So
lot of awesome interviews coming out.
absolutely. We've got D Savage on deck this Friday. We have the Mecca of the Mirror, Andrew Lovelace, coming out next Friday. The following Friday, we have the Suplex Sweetheart Isana and a handful of others for our Summer Indie Spotlight. And if you're a wrestler interested in being on our Indie Spotlight feature that we do every week, definitely shoot us an email, Mr. and Mrs. Wrestling Pod at gmail.com. We'll get you hooked up. Babe, hit me with your top three matches of the pay per view before we move on to AEW Dynamite.
Top three matches, absolutely. We got coming in at number three. I am going to pick the no holds barred match. Jericho defeats Tommaso Ciampa.
All right, number
That
three,
was a
got
fun
it.
match. Number two, I am going to go with the tag team match. That was the Young Bucks versus the Death Riders, John Moxley and Will Ospreay.
Okay.
And my number one match, Kyle Fletcher versus Bandito. Not even close.
Wow. I mean, we knew Kyle Fletcher was gonna take number one. He's number one in your heart, and I'm number two. So we all knew that was gonna be the case.
Listen, the Proto Star, he's awesome. Love him. Shout,
The
shout out Kyle
star.
Fletcher. If you want to be on the podcast, open invitation.
Open
5 minutes,
invitation.
5 minutes of your time.
Just bring those cool sunglasses.
That's right.
All right, let's kick off this Dynamite talk. It's late. So, Dynamite starts off with Insane Clown Posse and Rhino. Is that correct?
Yeah, so before the show, they're in Detroit. The live audience there got to see Rhino. So that was awesome. Reports are he got a huge ovation there. And then, you know, if you've been to an AEW show before the camera goes, you know, Tony Khan comes out to get everybody riled up, and out with Tony Khan came the Insane Clown Posse. They've been running Juggalo Championship Wrestling. Tony Khan was on the podcast with, Vince Russo, who's been writing that show, on that show. So, Tony's expressed his fondness for ICP, and they've been having some entertaining shows and some fun stuff. So definitely check out Juggalo Championship Wrestling if you want to check out more wrestling.
And then Will Ospreay hits Daniel Garcia and tells the Death Riders and a short-haired Hangman Page that he has to do this alone. So, is that it? He's out. He's out of the Death Riders.
Yeah, it looks like he hit Garcia with a hidden blade as soon as he's tried talking to him. So it certainly doesn't look like friendship to me. He didn't want to do things the Moxley way. Pac was ready to rip his head off, and Osprey just went at it alone. So now we'll see how alone he is, and is John Moxley going to let this go, or is John Moxley going to do what John Moxley does, and that's whatever he wants. But it was nice to see Hangman, and like you said, short-haired Hangman, so a little bit different. He's still the cowboy. He looked good, and we'll see what comes of Hangman. He had his battles with Kenny Omega. Being a tag team partner, a tag team champion together, to then winning his first world title and ending that Kenny Omega run. So he knows what it's all about when it comes to beating Kenny Omega for the world title.
Absolutely. Can't wait to see what kind of cowboy shit he gets into now that he's back. Then Andrade beats Nick Wayne and Jack Perry to retain his national title. So was this a triple threat match or a handicap match?
And it was a triple threat match. So Andrade, being the champion that he is, comes out, right away in a big time match against two of the people he beat uh, previously. Jack Perry, and Andrade, they've had their rivalries, especially when Andrade was with the Don Callis family. And, shout out Nick Wayne, getting the spotlight on Dynamite, former Ring of Honor television champion. Awesome to see Nick Wayne do his thing. And I thought Andrade looked like $1,000,000 tonight. He's in great shape. He looks confident. He looks happy. And he looked great with that national title around his waist. He's perfect for this role. And he's going to have awesome matches, and he gives them something different. He's filled in that Penta spot, very nicely in AEW.
Yeah, definitely. I think this is a great role for him. I feel like, you know, love it or hate it, when it comes to AEW or WWE, certain guys were built for the different companies. Some people that failed in WWE are thriving in AEW and vice versa. And I think that it's super exciting. And I mean, Andrade has is the best he's ever been. I feel like he's incredible right now. So, um, yeah, that's exciting that he'll be the champ for a while, and hopefully, I mean, I hope he keeps it for a while. Anyways, I hope they don't do the old switcheroo on him too soon. You know?
Yeah, I mean, he's gonna have awesome matches. So, anytime he goes out there, you can expect Andrade to, have fantastic chemistry with whoever he's with. And
Right.
he's gonna put it all out there. And, whether that's in CMLL or it's in Rev Pro, New Japan, GCW, House of Glory, maybe we'll see him at 814 Wrestling next. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, you never know. 814, hometown, our hometown promotion. We love them. All right. Then we had a match. It was Speedball, Bandito, and Brody King picking up the win against Brian Cage, Jack Doyle, and Kyle Fletcher. Can we get an actual measurement on Brian Cage's thighs? Because apparently Tony Schiavone thinks they're 39 inches. That is absolutely insane.
The Swolverine. Shout out Brian Cage on that
Oof.
repost. You know,
Yeah.
thanks
An
for
X.
the love there. You know, if you ever want to be on, hit us up. This was an awesome match. Again, Bandito and Kyle Fletcher, put them in the ring and I'll be happy. It was awesome to see it. And, Brody King was getting tossed around by Brian
Like
Cage.
a rag doll.
I mean, it takes your, words away. I mean, Brody King's a big dude.
Yeah.
And Brian Cage just picking him up like it's nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something to see. Speedball's awesome. Him and Fletcher next week in Arena Mexico. I'd imagine that's going to be fantastic. But this was an entertaining match, and this is the great thing about AEW. You're going to get matches, and you're going to see the in-ring stuff. Yeah, they're going to go to commercial, but these guys are still going to get their time. You're not having a 6-minute match here with six guys. All right, you go in, do this, hit your finisher. You go in, do this. No, these guys had actual time. They told a story, a couple segments, and it was a really fun match and set the stage for next week. And that's what you want to do on TV.
Yeah, definitely. Then the Young Bucks and Cope and Christian had a promo battle situation going on. Um, I think it was fantastic that the Young Bucks kind of went in. They're like, yeah, you guys are old, but we've been doing this a long time too. Um, I thought it was a great segment. What did you think about it, babe?
Yeah, it was fun. And, the Young Bucks having that attitude, like this isn't their first rodeo. They've been on top everywhere they went. New Japan, PWG, Ring of Honor, AEW.
Yep.
If they could have went to WWE if they wanted to, but they didn't. They started their own company. And, they're not, you know, Cope and Christian's young boys. So this was awesome to see, and I'd imagine you're going to get to see more of this. You know, the Young Bucks, they're going to go out, they're going to do their hits, and it's going to be awesome, and it's going to be fun. I'd like to see, Cope and Christian get a little more physical, a little more violent, and,
Yeah.
set the stage there. The big question is there going to be any kind of, interference with FTR? Are they going to get involved at all? Because they have a history with both teams, and that'd be something interesting. So certainly something to keep your eye on there.
Yeah, definitely. Then we had Maya World up against Persephone. Statlander and Cheetah both got involved, but Maya World still walks away as the winner. We both love Persephone. We're excited about her. She's awesome. She's a great wrestler. You said she's gonna be wrestling. What's her face?
Tessa,
Tessa Blanchard. Yes, definitely.
Friday night, CMLL or Arena Mexico.
So
It's
that'll
gonna,
be really fun to see.
yeah. I'm excited to see it. It should be fun. This was a much better match than the Sheeta My World match. I don't know if it was Persephone, but this was fun. Like you said, Persephone has the look. I love that she's healed now. She's got the attitude. And it was fun that Statlander and Sheeta got involved. So I'd imagine we're going to probably get Statlander and Persephone at some point. whether that's at the Arena Mexico show or if they book that for a Dynamite leading to All In.
Yeah. Yeah, I love Persephone. I think she's great talent. I can't wait to see more of her. Willow had her AEW Women's Title celebration in the ring with Renee. Willow could hardly keep it together there at points. The crowd was just going apeshit for her. Um, Mercedes Monday comes down. We get the Double D's and the Birds. Why don't you talk to us about this, babe?
Yeah, this was fun. Shout out the Detroit crowd. They really let Willow get her flowers, and good for Willow. She expressed having some struggles there, so she deserved to have that little shining moment. And she's been great in AEW. The ultimate baby face, and this is going to be a fun match. Her and Mercedes. Hopefully the build continues strong. I love the pairing of Mercedes and Divine Dominion. I think it's great to have them together. It looks great, and it allows them to gain that experience and get that rub from Mercedes. So I'd imagine we're going to get some six woman tags here in the next couple weeks, and you can almost see the writing on the wall that it's going to be the Double D's versus the Birds at All In, and that's going to be the crowning moment for the Birds to get their shining moment. The two British women getting the big tag title win in their homeland at All In Wembley. So that'll be fun. That's where Jamie made her big comeback. So it'll be a full circle moment for them to get the tag titles as well.
Yeah, definitely. That'll be a fun match to watch. They're both talented teams, and we like all of them. So nothing but good things to say. I mean, I hope Megan Bain and Penelope Ford never get back together because I'm loving her with her current partner. What's
Yeah,
her name again?
Lena Cross. Her and Lena
Lena
Cross are
Cross.
awesome.
Yes.
They look great. I'm a big Megan Bain fan. She's gonna be a world champion, and I'd love to see her and Willow go 1-on-1 for that TBS title. I think that would be really fun.
Yeah, definitely. Then we had a Mox and Commander match. Mox picks up the win here. I mean, Mox is he. There's no. He's the guy that's always there. Like he is always there. He never takes a vacation. Knock on wood, he's never injured. No breaks for that guy. What do you think about this match?
Yeah, really fun match. This is John Moxley is the ace of AEW. He can go out there with anybody, have a compelling match. You could tell as soon as his entrance hit, he was fired up. It was really entertaining. Mox always has great matches, you know, and he doesn't have to bleed in every single match, which is great and
He
just
has a good
awesome.
balance.
Yeah, you know, it was great that Commander got this showcase and got that shine. So, you know, fantastic match.
Definitely. Then we had the Demand picking up the win against the Conglomeration. This was a title change. New Trios champs. The Lethal Twirl were involved. Hangman clears the house, hits a buckshot lariat on Jay Lethal. And that's how the match ended?
Yeah, so new trios champs, the Demand pick up the win. So shout out Ricochet and the Gates of Agony. Uh, at one point, Toa Leona he just ran straight into the steel steps, and those steel steps had to be hurting after that because he kept it rolling, and just the impact there was awesome. But Ricochet and the Gates being champs, it's perfect.
Yeah.
Ricochet's been fantastic in the Demand, and they're a great trio. So shout out to them. It was nice to see the Lethal Swirl get involved. They had an awesome pre-show match with
Twist.
the
We've been calling it all the wrong names. They're the Lethal Twist.
Lethal Twist. Sorry, Jay Lethal.
I said twirl, you said swirl. That guy's
Yeah,
never coming on the pod.
no, definitely not. But they had a fantastic pre-show match on
Yeah, they were
Sunday.
great.
Yeah, so it was really entertaining. Blake Christian's been awesome. He was former GCW world champion, so shout out him. But yeah, Hangman, I thought this was a perfect opportunity for the Motor City Machine Guns to debut, and you know, didn't happen. But here comes Hangman, who got a huge, huge reaction with the barbed
Definitely.
wire steel chair, and he cleared house. And as you can tell, Hangman's still the ultimate babyface. So
Yeah.
where Hangman goes, that'll be interesting to see. Could it be Kevin Knight? Could it be Kyle Fletcher? Could it be John Moxley? That would be fun.
Definitely. Then to finish off the night, it was a Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay promo. This was a long promo. It felt very long for a very long show.
Yeah, they went all out. This went 2.5 hours. This show, so Kenny Omega, he looked great. Came out in a nice suit, and certainly Kenny Omega's fired up and he's ready to go. There's no lack of confidence there. And you're going to probably see a couple more promos between the two, probably tag matches, something to lead to that, but should be fun.
So tomorrow, Collision's going to be live on TNT and HBO Max. That's something different. Usually, Collision's on a Friday night, right, babe?
Saturday night, but
Oh, Saturday night.
they are the opposite of WWE. They are not going head to head. They do not want to split the audience. So they are not going to be airing their normal time, going up head to head with SummerSlam Night 1.
Yeah,
So they will be going tomorrow night on TNT and HBO Max. So, you'll get to see some fun matches on Collision.
yeah,
But
definitely.
next week they're in Arena Mexico for uh, Dynamite. So that's a stacked card already. Mark Davis versus Will Ospreay, Speedball versus the Protostar, Kyle Fletcher. So must see TV next week in Mexico.
Definitely. And then September 9th, AEW does have their Rebel Heart show to benefit Rebel Tania, who was diagnosed with ALS back in March. And she's, was a beloved, fixture in the AEW community for a while as like the manager for Britt Baker. I know that they've been doing ice challenges and things like that on Instagram. So definitely, you want to tune in for that for AEW.
Yeah,
Um,
make sure you go and support Rebel. Make sure get her merch. Donate. ALS is tough, and
it's
you
devastating.
the wrestling community. We gotta come behind Rebel and show that support. So make sure you watch. Make sure you do your research. Make sure you donate. Make sure you do anything you can to support Rebel and anybody going through that with ALS.
Yeah, definitely. As far as the pod goes, we have a new big show coming out on Friday for D Savage. We've already had a lot of incredible guests on our Summer Indie Spotlight. You can go back and listen to all the episodes we've aired so far. Those are all going to be on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. You could check out, the Gentleman of Exquisite Caliber, Godric Sandwell, Bryce Maddox. I mean, we've had a ton of guests on the pod so far. Rico Gold, who had a huge match against Val Venus this past weekend, and he won.
Yeah, shout
I know
out
Val
Rico Gold. Great
definitely
win.
great
Make sure you
win.
check him out.
Absolutely, we've had a ton of incredible guests. The X Man. All of these interviews are available to you 24/7 on YouTube, so definitely check them out.
Yeah, all make sure you check out their merch as well. We've got, more, great independent people coming on. D Savage there, got the count here. So make sure you go out there, make sure you support independent wrestling. But that's going to do it for this week's edition of Mr. and Mrs. Wrestling Podcast. We'll be back with our SummerSlam preview. Make sure you stay tuned for that. We're going to be looking back at two SummerSlams, two of the biggest ones ever. The first one, 1988, and then Mayor's favorite, 2002, where we got to see Brock Lesnar battle The Rock for the undisputed title.
hmm Thank you so much for hanging out with us for another live reaction episode. Whether you agree with every take, disagree with every word, or land somewhere in the middle, we appreciate you making us a part of your wrestling week.
If you enjoyed today's show, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, and leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen to podcasts. It really helps us reach more wrestling fans and continue bringing you interviews, live reactions, classic show retrospectives, and coverage from all over the wrestling world.
You can catch every episode on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, X, and TikTok so you never miss new episodes, breaking news, giveaways, and exclusive contents.
Have a wrestler promotion or topic you'd like us to cover? Drop us a comment. Send us a message. We're always looking to spotlight incredible people who make professional wrestling what it is.
From all of us here at the Mr. and Mrs. Wrestling Podcast, thank you for spending your time with us. And until next time,
Keep supporting independent wrestling, pro wrestling. Keep supporting the wrestlers who entertain us every single week. And please remember,
the bell may have rung, but the conversation is just getting started. We'll see you next time, guys. Bye.
thanks, thanks for joining us.